Here in America, spring is tornado season. Polar fronts sweep down from Canada, tropical air surges up from the Gulf of Mexico, and storms form where the air masses clash, producing wild temperature swings, severe thunderstorms, and an average of about 1,200 tornadoes each year. The winds inside a tornado are the most powerful on Earth, capable of ripping houses from their foundations, wrapping cars around telephone poles, and scouring asphalt from the streets. The strongest tornadoes, EF4s and EF5s, are almost unimaginably destructive. A single F5 twister in 1925 tore a path 220 miles long and up to a mile wide, destroying 15,000 homes and killing nearly 700 people. Though not as violent or numerous as their American counterparts, tornadoes occur in many parts of Europe, including Greece and Italy, where they were observed and discussed in antiquity. The earliest classical explanations of the weather were mythological. The thunderbolt, famously, was the weapon of Zeus, and Poseidon could summon tempests with his trident. The fire-breathing monster Typhoeus, father of the storm winds, hurled hurricanes at the gods. As early as the 7th century BC, however, philosophers began to posit rationalist theories about the weather. Before we investigate these and outline the evidence for ancient tornadoes, a brief word about this video's sponsor. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world. Designed by real language teachers, Babbel uses short interactive lessons to teach the skills needed for real-world conversations. I've spent quite a bit of time in Turkey and used to be fairly conversant in Turkish. But having become more than a little rusty, and in the spirit of spring renewal, I decided to use Babbel to refresh my conversational skills before an upcoming trip. It has been quite a while since my last visit, so I started by reviewing the pronunciation of such basic phrases as "İyi günler," good day, and "Nasılsınız," how are you? Hopefully, I'll be refreshed enough to talk with curators and sight guards by the time I go back to Turkey. If you'd like to start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks, sign up for Babbel today. Click on the link in the description to get 60% off your subscription. If you aren't completely satisfied, there's a 20-day money-back guarantee. Returning to ancient theories about storms, Thales, the first Greek philosopher, connected changes in the weather with the motions of the heavens. His student Anaximander hypothesized that thunderstorms were produced by currents of wind agitating clouds. The first truly systematic discussion, however, was Aristotle's Meteorology, a treatise that ambitiously set out to investigate the composition and phenomena of the Earth, sky, and everything else beneath the moon's orbit. Aristotle believed that the sun's heat draws forth warm, dry air from the land and cool, damp air from the sea. The interactions of warm and cool air produce the weather. Wind, according to Aristotle, is generated when currents of warm air, which tend to rise, meet the rotating sphere of the heavens. When two rising currents of warm air converge, they struggle for dominance, forming a circular eddy in the clouds. If this eddy sinks, carrying the cloud down to Earth, a tornado is born. Sometimes, where the currents of air have an exceptionally fine texture, they catch fire, apparently a description of the lightning that often accompanies tornadic thunderstorms. Although Aristotle's description would remain influential for the rest of antiquity, other philosophers proposed alternative explanations of tornadoes. Theophrastus, for example, described them as hollow clouds that drew air upward. Seneca believed that they were caused by the deflection of strong winds. Hundreds of tornadoes must have occurred over the course of classical history, but the vast majority are unknown, either because they struck remote places, because descriptions of such things seemed beneath the dignity of history, or because the works that mentioned them have vanished. Fortunately, we still have a rather odd little treatise titled The Book of Prodigies. Compiled in the 4th century by a certain Julius Subsequens, this compilation of disasters that occurred between the mid-Republican era and the reign of Augustus contains 3 apparent descriptions of tornadoes, turbines in Latin, striking ancient Rome. The first of these occurred in 156 BC, when a storm, apparently a small tornado, roared through the center of Rome, destroying a portico near the Circus Flaminius, damaging many houses in the neighborhood, and obliterating the riverside mansion of the Pontifex Maximus. In 60 BC, another tornado touched down in the vicinity of Rome. It appeared with a sudden thunderstorm in late afternoon, tore up groves of trees by their roots, destroyed a bridge, and leveled a number of buildings. Finally, in 44 BC, not long, apparently, before the assassination of Julius Caesar, what appears to have been another tornado touched down in the heart of Rome, overturning a statue of Cicero, breaking the doors of a temple, and destroying many buildings and trees. The brief reports in the Book of Prodigies are more tantalizing than informative. Although something like the disasters he records probably occurred, Subsequens was interested in signs and omens, not accurate weather reporting. His description of the damage caused by the tornado of 44, for example, notes that the overthrow of Cicero's statue portended the great man's death, just as the tornado itself, like the comets and earthquakes he also mentions, foretold the assassination of Caesar. We have much more detail for the early modern period. On the evening of June 11th, 1749, for example, a tornado formed over the Tyrrhenian Sea and tore a 20-mile path along the Tiber. Entering the southeast corner of Rome, it left a trail of devastation about 200 feet wide, stripping roofs from buildings and even cobbles from the streets before leaping the walls and heading toward Tivoli. As recently as November 2016, an F3 tornado formed just north of Rome. Like the 1749 tornado, it began as a waterspout. Coming ashore at the town of Ladispoli, it caused extensive damage to houses and apartment buildings, flipped cars, uprooted trees, and killed 2 people. We have no way of knowing the intensity of the few ancient tornadoes mentioned by our sources, but if any of these were as strong as the 2016 twister, they must have caused terrible damage to the teeming, crumbling city of ancient Rome. If you're interested in more Told in Stone content, including my podcast, check out my channel, Told in Stone Footnotes. I also have a channel called Scenic Routes of the Past, which is dedicated to historically themed travel. You'll find both channels linked in the description. Please consider joining other viewers in supporting Told in Stone on Patreon. You might also enjoy my book, Naked Statues, Fat Gladiators, and War Elephants. Thanks for watching.